Hello, my name is Nicholl, and thank you so much for taking the time out to listen. Today, I titled this message, Men Who Play Sinful Women Games. Men who play sinful women games. Now, who are these men that would even dare to do things that have a feminine nature to them? And not just any feminine nature. We're talking about a wicked feminine nature. Well, these are men who have learned much from wicked mothers, wicked stepmothers, wicked aunts, female cousins, sisters, you name it. These are men that don't necessarily think about what they are doing is very similar to the women that they grew up with, but lo and behold, if they don't figure it all out later on after repeatedly being in broken, dysfunctional relationships, after acting like females, their friends will even accuse them of thinking like a woman, acting like a woman. Then they will either try to continue on with their lifestyle, or they will try to make some changes because they don't like what they have become. I think of the men who I was around who unfortunately did not have their fathers in their lives in the way that God intended. You see, there are those individuals who have struggled long and hard over the absence or distance of a father figure. So they are going to gravitate to whoever is around them. And for a lot of these men that I've encountered, it has been women. And so they're expecting women to behave in the way that they grew up. They're expecting women to act like this person and that person that I once knew. And I will tell you that if that person that they are hoping that you are going to act like, or is what is familiar or comfortable to them, is sinful, then guess what? They're going to expect you to act just like that sinful, wicked woman that inspired them, trained them, taught them. Now, of course, we are not going to be so shallow-minded and ignorant to say all this or all that, because all women and all men are not one thing or another. There's always somebody that's different out there. There's always a person that's good, that's nice, that's respectful. There's always that one that's ugly and nasty and dark. And then there's those that on any given day, they could be either good or they could be evil. It just all depends. But the problem with these individuals who take on a woman's mindset, a wicked woman's mindset, is that they are not good partners. They're not good supervisors. They're not good managers. They tend to do the types of things that cause division between women because they know how to play the game of gossip. They know how to play the game of exaggeration, lying. They know how to play the pity party. They know how to even turn on tears, just like women. Oh, I just went through so much and I don't think I'm coming into the office today. Oh, yes, they know how to turn on the water. And if you are not mindful of a man like this, you will easily be swept into this web that he created that was built on his sinful mama's activities. I came across women who said that back in the day they had to do much hiding because their husbands and boyfriends were gamblers and they were alcoholics and they were abusive to them. So they learned how to be very sneaky and conniving, and they knew how to do all sorts of things to make sure that they had whatever it is that they were storing up, which typically was money. Now, for some folks, they would say, well, yeah, that makes sense, because if you're around alcoholics and abusive people, you got to protect your family. Well, our God is the kind of God that he just uproots some folks if you're willing to walk with him. So you don't have to sneak and you don't have to lie and you don't have to connive. And if you got to walk miles to go somewhere, which many women did, because back in those 40s and 50s and even beyond, they were not driving like women are nowadays. They did what they had to do. So, some folks will justify their devious mother's behavior, and others will, say, well, that is true. She could have done some other things. But then it becomes even more challenging when not only was mama doing certain things, but she didn't explain why she was doing what she was doing to her children. So her children quite naturally lie too. Her son picked up her ways. So she was keeping information from the controlling husband or boyfriend that she had. And so he thinks that it's right to keep information to himself, which looks like he's being sneaky, even though he may not look at it as such. But he saw his mother acting sneaky, you see. Or what about the mother who was exaggerating things over the phone, and her son sat back and watched how she would put on a great act, talking to different people over the phone or even in person. And so he learns that, well, hey, it's okay to change up my personality with this one and change up my personality with that one and act all sweet and nice with this particular ethnicity. Once again, if we go back in history, there were those who were subservient, right, and treated white people a certain way, usually with more respect and more dignity and all that other stuff. But then their own kind, they didn't treat so well. And even now, this sort of thing takes place. And no one bothered to sit down and explain as to why years ago that was taking place. Well, back then they used to hang blacks. Okay? Back then, they used to set fire to homes, and they used to harass some of those cocky, prideful type of black folks. And so this is why there was this reverence, at least that's what it appeared to be, but it was really a fear. And so you got this son who looks at his mother acting in certain ways around different folk. And so he thinks that it's okay. It's okay to put on an act. You see, we have to be careful what we're teaching our sons, because our sons can either be too feminine or too masculine based on the way we act. If God is convicting you on telling some lies, telling some exaggerations, if God is convicting you on having a double-minded type of attitude in addition to acting two-faced, as the street would say, wearing two different types of personalities as it suits you, then it would make sense not to do the types of things that's going to cause problems in the future for your offspring. And God does show us some things about ourselves. And he also shows when our children are looking up at us and saying, okay, why is she acting this way? Okay, I really don't care why she's acting this way, but it looks good. It feels good. It's all right. And then you got the mothers back in the day who used to tell their kids, go play. They didn't want their kids sitting back and observing them talking to their female friends or male friends. Go play. We're having an adult conversation. You don't need to be up in my face right now asking me questions and sitting there staring at me. Go play, you see. But some of these mothers don't think. They don't think beyond what is going on. And so what they'll do is they'll go ahead and continue with certain behaviors until later on the boy starts snapping his fingers. He starts rolling his neck. He starts putting his hand on his hip. Or maybe he doesn't do any of that, but he got a little twitch when he walks. Come on. And nobody bothered to correct him. And so he tends to attract some folks that mama didn't want him to attract. But, hey, mom, you recruited him. You trained him. How did I do that? He was watching you. And you never bothered to pay close attention because you was too busy working or too busy with this man or that man. And so now he's old enough where people are starting to pay close attention and they're seeing, wait a minute, this boy isn't necessarily acting in the way that God intended. And then some folks want to abuse and they want to hurt folks when they act like this. Why? You got to look at what he was around and who he was around. And then for some folks, they say we need to make him act more like, and then you fill in the blank. But is that what he's comfortable with while you're trying to make him? God, I personally believe that he gives a pass on some of these folks that go through like they go through, because their minds are so warped in another world to the point where no matter what some people say or do, you cannot reach them because they got too much programming. They got way too much programming going on with them as a result of mothers who are wicked, who are not observant, who are ineffective, or who are demanding. I don't want to be this way, mama, but I've been around you all these years, says the son. As much as I would like to be, dare we say it, a man, since you questioning my manhood, it's kind of hard to do that when, guess what? There was no men around me. Oh, and I'm supposed to just change after 20 some years of acting this way? Get out of here, mama. You see? And the fathers, why be so critical? Where were you? So when I thought about this, I had to think about the fact that God, though, he's still that God that loves us, irregardless of what we become, right? Or who we're around or what we do. And he still gives us an opportunity to come to him with our grievances rather than being hateful and mean-spirited and ugly like some of those mamas and sisters and cousins and all those other females that are out there. And then you got some of the men who they can't help but even have a certain style, a dress that's similar to their mother. Maybe it's macho, but it's tight. The pants are tight. The shirt is tight. Okay. There's some that tend to be very, very zealous about the way their home looks because mama was very zealous. And if they don't want to clean, they expect their girlfriends and their wives to be clean freaks. Because my mama, she always made sure the house was clean, you see. And then you have some of the other ones where they don't wait on a woman. They're very, very careful and very almost perfect, if you will, about their household. Okay. And so for some of you all, when you're trying to just figure this thing out with some of these men, you got to remember who they grew up with, who they were around. And as much as you want to pray about some things, that man has to make up in his mind whether or not he wants to change. And some men don't want to change. They feel comfortable being whoever they are, doing whatever they're doing. And then some folks, they're not all that comfortable with it. And so that's why they try very hard to get up out of mama's world, mama's mindset, okay, and all these other females around them. Because they get around other men and they say, wait a minute, I don't like the way I'm acting. I don't like the way I feel. I mean, you know, this isn't typical. This isn't right. This isn't the type of stuff that I even, you know, feel comfortable with as a man. Where did I get all of this from? And then God has a way of taking some folks back down memory lane. I remember a cousin of mine, he started thinking about some things that he grew up with. And he said that one thing he recalled was just how obsessed one of my relatives was about cleaning. And he said that he, being around her all the time, started being that way, you know, about his household. And then when he got with women, he was very strict with them about keeping a nice household. And unfortunately, he was violent when these women didn't, you know, listen. So you see, sometimes while everybody, you know, has their little opinion about, you know, those that are effeminate, sometimes it works the other way where they become so macho and so mad and so angry at what they've been exposed to. And other people have teased them and abused them about it that they end up hurting women, okay, with their words and with their mannerisms. And then they don't connect with women in the way that God intended, in a peaceful, loving, kind way. Instead, they look at the women as enemies. My mama was no good and you're no good either. my mama, she would lie and she would steal and she would cover up. Oh, don't start doing stuff that's similar to the mom. Oh, wow. Right? Because now that's triggering some things, because this guy has unresolved issues connected to his mother, and he doesn't see where his mother was not the best influence, even though she said, I am your mother and I've done good things for you and I've been there for you. But yet all of that suffocates the fact that there were some things that she didn't do. And there were some things that affected him negatively. And if I keep being fed this brainwashing from someone who doesn't want me to see the truth about them, I'm going to redirect my anger on some folks rather than the one who started all this stuff. You see? So I'm still being programmed by that dysfunctional person. Every holiday, right? You show up and here she go again. I'm telling you, some of you all, you pay attention to a lot of things going on with other people, but then you don't pay attention to how some of these wicked women play on these men, and then these men want to mistreat the women that they claim they love and like. And then some of these fathers don't pay close attention to how that wicked woman that you got yourself involved with years ago played a part on your son, and now your son can't seem to connect with anyone in the way that God intended. Not the way he wants, but in the way that God intended. And God intended for us to be in healthy relationships, relationships that are functional, relationships that are built on trust and honesty and respect. He intended for us to love one another, right? Be kind, be patient, and not keep record of wrongs. But if mama, the minute somebody insulted her or hurt her, she kept wrongs. She went around the house, started bad-mouthing daddy and cousins and everybody else, right? Sisters and brothers and you name it. And those children pick up on that. They're going to be that way toward other family members as well, including possibly their own distant father. Well, hey, mom, she wasn't forgiving about some things. And I think that it was cool because, well, she protected her heart. She protected her mind when she did that. But then that suffocates your growth spiritually, mentally, and physically if you always are keeping a checklist of everything that's wrong with folk. Right? Then you're not able to fully connect with people because you're always looking for the wrong in them, because you notice some things, whether overtly or covertly, concerning your mother. So now your wife has to pay, or your husband has to pay, or whoever gets close to you has to pay because they did something that triggered something from way back in the day. And then you start saying, you know what, you just like my mother. When meanwhile, that's not even the case. Some people make mistakes. Yes, we do get involved with people that's similar to parents, but we're not to be holding them to every little thing. But if you grew up in that type of atmosphere, that's why you do what you do. And you've got to change that. And how are you going to change it? In your own strength? Once again, I got to remind somebody, you got to draw near to the Lord. Because these sorts of deep issues cannot be dealt with in your own strength. These are the types of things where you're going to the Lord possibly on a daily basis with the same things and asking him for the necessary resources, and then getting on the internet and researching, and then possibly getting in front of someone who's a professional, to talk to them about the things that bother you, so that you can be able to just manage some things that your mom damaged. And there are people that's in relationships right now because they were running away from their mother. It's not that I loved you so much. Oh, no. I was running away from my mother because my mother had put so much negativity and drama, and I didn't want to live in her house any longer. So, yeah, you just happen to be that scapegoat. There are men that are hooked up with women because they were running away from their mother. And how's that coming? And then there are those men who they're not involved with any woman because they have pretty much chalked it all up as, you know what? They're all terrible. My dad was right, because the dad was talking negatively about the mother. See how sneaky she is? She telling lies, doing this, doing that. But then the dad, though, he's saying all of that to hide the fact that he was abusive to her. So that's why she felt like she had to do what she had to do. See how she is out there on the street, with this one and that one and everything else. Yeah, but what were you doing to her? We ain't getting into all of that. That's grown folk business. Of course you don't want to talk about that. She was out there talking to this neighbor and that neighbor, and she was out there for some of these other women messing with this man and that one, because she couldn't find love at home, because she knew that that man wasn't into her. He was into her money. He was into what she could do for the children and for the household, but he wasn't into her as a human being. And so she was out there looking for love, and she happened to look for love in all the wrong places. And so then you got some men who pride themselves on, well, I'm going to be that good man and I'm going to save the day. I'm going to do what I can, right? While they're doing somebody else. But I'm going to do what I can. They're putting on that false front. And that mother sees that, but then she don't want her children to know. She don't want her children to know what's really going on. So once again, she's got some dysfunctional mannerisms, and her son sees some of this stuff. And then if he's hearing some negative stuff coming from his father, once again, here we go. We got some hate going on toward women. We got some abusing women. We got some chalking them all up as prostitutes and BITs, CHESs, and everything else. You see? So we take all of these things that we see with some of these individuals and we pray. And right now I'm seeing some faces, so I'm taking the time out right now in the name of Jesus to pray that these men will see where their mother has negatively influenced them, that they will see the wickedness, and that they will come up out of that type of brainwashing and control, as well as repressed memories and adverse childhood events, that they will be able to see the light in Jesus' mighty name. I pray that the Lord will just protect them from any more damage, okay? That they will not have to go through these things any longer. That they will be able to learn how to protect themselves and establish boundaries, healthy boundaries, and be functional individuals who come to a place where they actually love and appreciate the women that are around them. I pray these things in Jesus' mighty name. And I pray that those men who have troubled marriages, that their marriages will be healed as they are growing, as they are learning more about what took place when they were children, and how it ties into why they are behaving in the way that they are this day. I pray these things in Jesus' mighty name. And I'm believing that some man who was once hating a woman, couldn't stand a woman, is going to get to a place where he's like, you know what? This was me. This was me. And my connection to these different negative women, stepmothers, guardians, spiritual mothers, these were wicked women. They were deceitful. And I don't want this on me. And he'll just work toward change. And that he will come to really love and appreciate that partner. Well, that is it. I thank you as always for taking time out of your schedule to listen. You've been listening to YouTube NM Enterprise 7. Feel free to subscribe. Also, if you haven't checked the description box, please do. There's a number of publications I've written. And if you feel that any one of those titles will be of benefit to you, by all means, purchase one. And also, if you haven't given, we do welcome donations. I know some people, they're not aware of that, but we do. So by all means, give whatever you feel God is leading you to give. Sometimes I'm able to take the monies and just help out with the advertising. Also, I'm able to get some folks to kind of help me out with some of the things dealing with YouTube. So, you know, if you can be able to give, by all means give. Well, blessings to you. Thank you as always for listening.